So here are the contract verbs exercises. Let's take a look at 9 here. Let's say the word together, everybody. Lalete. Lalete. All right, so if you know your vocabulary words, you know that there's a verb that you've learned that has part of the syllables in here, right? What is that verb? La, le, o. That's right, la, le, o. We'll jot that down here real quickly. And when you see la, le, o, that should be making you think, this is what kind of verb? A contract verb, because contract verbs' lexical forms end with uh-oh, uh-oh, and uh-oh. That's right. And this is an uh-oh verb. So which contract vowel does it have? It's got the epsilon, right? So with all contract verbs, whatever that stem vowel is, those are going to be the things you're looking for in your contractions list to see contracting with things. Epsilon plus this, epsilon plus that, epsilon plus something else, okay? So this is why I think it's important to start with what you have and then what those things produce. But that's just me. That's me and Mounce squabbling a little bit. But that's okay. I love him.
Mom and Dad.
It's good, man. That's right. Mom and Dad are arguing. And since he wrote the grammar, I'm the mom. The mom's always right. I've learned this being married for over 20 years. Okay, so look at the identifiable personal ending. Is there one that you see that you know and love? Yes, te. And te is which person and number? Second plural. So here's the deal. The second to the last column is the lexical form, but the last column is not the lexical meaning, not the meaning of the lexical form, but the inflected meaning, the meaning of the form in the first column with these personal endings. So always make sure that you start to write down your inflected meaning based on what you've analyzed this as. So if this is second plural, then the subject is what? You or y'all. Good. So y'all do something or are doing something. And then we have to start to figure out what does the la-le of laleo and lalete, what does that mean? What's the form? And which tense is this? Well, how many tenses do we know so far?
One.
Thankfully, only one. So right now, the answer is always present active indicative. Okay? But we know that the present stem is used for the lexical form, and these do match, right? The stems match. And when we get to the imperfect, we're going to learn a little bit more about how stems function. When we get to the aorist tense, the future tense, we're going to look a little bit more at how these stems function. But for now, we're seeing the present stem for sure. And it's active. We're using the active endings. So how are we going to translate this? Y'all speak or are speaking, right? Y'all speak, y'all are speaking. So we'll just do the simple translation here. Okay.
I have a question about
Yes.
number 3.
Number 3, yes.
So the lexical form is the first person singular present active indicative, right?
The lexical form is supposed to be the present active indicative first person singular.
So why is it that the lexical form of number 3 is different than the inflected?
Yeah, good question. Because if, let me put it this way. If the lexical form were truly the first person singular, present active indicative of a contract verb, and if the contract verb's contract vowel always contracts with the omega, and the omega beats up every vowel it runs into and forces it into submission, and it goes running away, you'll never see the contract vowel, will you? You'll never see it. And that's why this fake, phony form is used for the lexical form. It's to tell you what the contract vowel is. Because in the real first-person singular form, you'd never see it. Poieo would be poio, just the omega. Playrao would be playro, just the omega. Agapaos, agapo, just the omega. Yes?
So when we're doing translations from the New Testament, will it show the fake word or the
When you're looking at the New Testament itself, you'll never see the fake word in the New Testament. You'll only see the real first person singular form. So, tereo is from tereo. Tereo. All right, and this is first singular, as we know, right? And then, of course, the answer is always present active indicative. How will we translate that? I keep, I guard. Mm-hmm. All right, good. Or I am keeping, I am guarding. Next. Six is a good one because it is a little bit trickier. We have agapa. Now, you might suppose that this is the noun for love. Okay? If this weren't a verb chapter and you just came across agapa in the Greek New Testament, you'd have to wrestle with that. Is this the word love? Now, if it were, what would be the lexical form of love? It's agape, right? And it ends with an eta, which is what declension pattern? It's first declension. If I start with an eta for my lexical form, all the singular forms that have a first declension noun that has an eta stem, does the eta stay or does the eta switch around to stuff, different things? You guys remember? It's been a while.
Can you ask that again?
Yeah. The first declension nouns, I'll write a couple of them down. Okay, so think hora, doxa, and what was our other one? Which one ends with eta that we learned? Zoe. No, what was another one? What was our standard paradigm verb, or noun? For the sake of time, I am not putting the accent marks here, but so I have 3 first declension feminine nouns, 2 that end with an alpha stem, and then 1 that ends with an eta stem. You remember, in the singular forms, we have nominative, genitive, dative, accusative, right? What happens? Hora becomes horas, dative, hora with an iota subscript, horon, right? Doxa, on the other hand, becomes doc, ses, and then it goes back to the alpha, doxon. Graphe becomes gra-face, gra-fe with the iota subscript, and then gra-fane. So you see, these first declension nouns, either they keep the alpha all the way throughout the singular, or they switch the alpha to the eta, and then back to the alpha in the singular. Or, if you start with eta, they stay eta throughout in the singular. Okay? That was with singular. In the plural, all first declension alphas and etas go to what? They go to alpha. So, nominative, plural, genitive, dative, accusative, it's I, own, obscures the alpha, ice, and us, right? Doxa, doxai, doxone, doxis, doxos. Graphe, that also becomes alpha. Graphi, graphone, graphis, graphos. Okay? So my point is, agape is an eta stem. So, if I'm going to have an iota subscript, it's going to be subscripting under an eta, isn't it? But if you look at what I've got up here, I have agapa with an alpha and an iota subscript. That is telling me that this can't be the noun agape. This can't be the first declension noun with a dative singular case ending. Okay? This is a verb where contraction has happened and the iota at the end has subscripted after the contraction. Now, where did we see this kind of a thing happen? If you go back and look at our little contraction handout, you see that alpha followed by an epsilon iota can do this, right? And that's what we've got here. The alpha and the epsilon contract and become what? Who got there first? The alpha. And the alpha wins and becomes, these together form a long alpha. which is what that alpha is with the circumflex. The iota hanging out on the side, now subscripts. Okay? So which personal ending is that are we seeing here when we have an A that contracts? That's third singular. Okay, and I can go ahead and translate in my inflected meaning as he, she, or it, right? And then, well, the tense is always present, active, indicative. So what's my lexical form? It's not agapo, but agapao, because this is a contract verb. Okay, so agapao. All right, so he, she, or it. How did you translate it? Is loving? Loves. That would be the best way to do it. He, she, or it loves or cherishes. Okay. All right. Any other questions? Any questions on the warm-up exercises? Let's do these real quick. I want to get into the next chapter if I can today.
Can you do gamma?
Gamma. Let's do that. Zeytusen say. Say that with me. Zeytusen say. So what is Zeytusen? And do you see an identifiable personal ending on there? Does that look familiar to you?
Yes.
Yeah. Which person and number is Zeytusen? That's third plural. What's the lexical form? Yeah, zetao. Zetao. Now, if all you had was this and you didn't know what the lexical form was, it would be either zetao or zetao, right? It could be an omicron. Just thinking about what forms an omicron upsilon, right? But in fact, if we know our lexical form, zetao is the right one. So what does it mean to seek? So who's seeking here? Yeah, third plural. Third plural. So they seek or they are seeking, and say is you. That's the accusative, singular. Which person is that pronoun? Yeah, it's second person. Okay. Remember, our first and second person pronouns don't have gender. They have a case and number. All right, so they are seeking you. This is probably something the disciples said to Jesus. Master, they are seeking you. All right. Other questions?
Yes, could you explain delta?
Delta. Agapas me. What is this little semicolon at the end of the sentence? There's a punctuation mark, and it indicates a question. So you have to take that into account in your translation. That is a question mark. But let's drop it for a second. Let's assume it's not there, or pretend it's not there. Agapas me. Who's doing the loving here in agapas? You see that sigma? Who is that? That's you. That's second singular. Okay? Second singular. So you love me. Now, that's a statement of fact, but the question mark tells me I have to turn it into a question. I can do that one of two ways. I could take the statement, the assertion, and I can raise my intonation at the end with it to create a question. You love me? Right? You love me? Question. Or you use a form of the helping verb to do. And since this is present tense, we need to use do, not did. Do you love me? Do you love me? Okay, so you love me? Question? Or do you love me?
See, so what's confusing about that is those are two different, I feel like those are two very different questions. Like, you love me and do you love me? Like, imagine if Jesus said to Peter, you love me?
Right, yes.
The impact isn't
right.
So to assume that it's do you love me when it's like the literal translation is.
It might be because saying I love you and asking people if they love you is such a personal thing. Okay? But what if I looked at you and said, Taylor, you want coffee? Versus, do you want coffee? Are you offended by either of those?
No.
They're both pretty much equivalent, aren't they?
Yeah.
So basically, we do have two ways of forming questions in English. One's using the do strategy, and the other one's not inverting with do, but just making it like a statement, but raising the intonation at the end. But you're right. There are certain contexts where you actually communicate a little bit more by choosing one or the other. And I do agree with you. I think saying "you love me" is different.
I always assume that like the more formal way of asking the question is correct. Like, do you love me is more formal, I guess, than.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're going to be safest if you go that way. Sure.
I think with writing it, you have to put the do, but if
Yeah, exactly.
it's just me and you,
Mm-hmm.
you don't have to put the do because it's the way my voice sounds when I ask it.
Right.
You love me? It's kind of like.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. Yeah, when you're writing, you can't raise your intonation, can you? I was talking about this with our other class. You could start writing your letters bigger at the end. That would be kind of funny. All right, but yeah, in written language, you can't indicate intonation.
Big circumflex.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. So, other questions about the work, this part? Yeah. All right. If not, let's go on to the translation homework, shall we? And I'm happy to go through any of these if you'd like. Right. So number 10, let's read it together out loud real quickly. Ready? Idu hoi mathe tai su poiusin ha uk exesten poien en sabato. All right. So Philip, you asked about this. How far can you get with translating this? And let us help you.
Translation's just clunky.
Yeah?
So I translated see your disciples doing what is not lawful to do on the Sabbath.
Okay. So see or behold your disciples. Now this is a statement. So it's not see them doing something, but see, comma, your disciples are doing. Okay? See, your disciples are doing. And then ha ukesten poien. Now we don't really know what that means. I think that's what his footnote is trying to tell us. This means to be lawful, right? And this is the third singular form. Now, what did you do with the ha here? You remember this? What kind of a word is ha? What is that?
Oh, it's relative.
That's a relative pronoun, isn't it? And when we have relative pronouns introduce relative clauses, and relative clauses are adjectival and they modify a head or an antecedent. Do I have a head or an antecedent here? We talked about this around Halloween last semester.
So would it be ug et exestin?
This stuff is inside the relative clause, but the head or the antecedent that the relative clause modifies is typically on the outside of the relative clause. But what precedes the relative pronoun is actually a verb, right? Which that's not the antecedent of the relative pronoun. What we have here is we have a missing or a null head, and we called this a headless relative clause. There's no head here. And we could translate it as the thing, right? Or that, as in that which. So look, see, your disciples are doing the thing which, or that which, uk existen poien, it is not lawful to do. En sabbato, on Sabbath. Okay? So.
Ha, I guess, is a relative pronoun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So.
It has an acute. That's a grave. Right?
Yeah. And so you would normally sit with an acute in your paradigms, right? But remember, what happens is when I have a word that would have an acute on the final syllable, if it's not at the end of the sentence or there's not some long pause here, then it's going to switch to the grave. Okay, and that's what's happened here. Yeah. All right. Other questions? We're just going to do one.
Oh, can you do 7?
Yes, let's do 7. Okay, so we have here ha me agapon. He tells you that, well, you don't really know exactly, but ha agapon is one who loves, or the one who loves. Ha me agapon is negating that. So how would you translate that? Me is a negative particle.
The one who doesn't love?
So yeah, so the one who doesn't love. The one who doesn't love who?
Me.
Me. And then I've got a direct object over here, and this is where the main verb is. So we have to actually go grab that main verb before we, in English, translate the direct object here. So the one who loves me, the one who doesn't love me, u tere. U tere. What's that mean?
It's not see me or see.
That's not
Not
ze.
keep.
It's not zeteo. It's tereo. What's tereo?
Not keep.
To keep. So does not keep. Okay. So the one who doesn't love me does not keep. So this whole thing is the subject, and this is the main verb. Okay. The one who doesn't love me, utere, does not keep, and then this is the accusative noun. It's the direct object of that main verb. Does not keep what? Tus logus mu. The words of me, which is to say my words. Okay? And then we have kai ha logos. What's that?
And my word.
And
The word.
the word. Han akuate. That's another relative clause, isn't it? What's the head of this relative clause? Halagos. That's the head. This is what's being modified. It's telling you something about the word which you hear. The word which you hear. That word. What about the word which you hear? Uk esten emas. Han akure. Uk esten emas. Yeah, is with uk in front of it,
Is not mine?
is not mine. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Really dumb question.
Mm-hmm.
How do you know that uk doesn't modify akuete? Or akuete?
Well, the negative particle would go in front of the verb that it negates. So yeah, we have it after. So it goes in front of the other verb, which it does negate. That's
Okay.
okay.
What does the second verb say?
What's that?
What is the second, or after kai, you and the word which you hear is not?
Yeah, uk esten is not emas mine.
So the back half of the sentence, I can see where is comes from, but the front half, why wouldn't it be does not keep my word instead of is not keeping my words?
So you're talking about the first half of the sentence?
Yes. So
Yeah.
I don't know why he picked is instead of does.
Okay, so he translates in his answer key, is not keeping my word?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. This is one of those situations, as I've mentioned before, is not keeping, right? This is where Mounce, I think, overdoes it in his answer key with always going with this present progressive translation for a present tense verb form. Because when you put it that way, it sounds like Jesus is saying, like right now, while I'm saying this, all these people are not keeping my word. What I think Jesus is talking about is what people habitually do, what they do as a matter of course, right? Repetitive kind of action, but not necessarily that they're engaged in it right now at the time of speaking, okay? And so when you switch the is to does and you say, whoever does not love me does not keep, then that prevents you from assuming it's happening right now at exactly the same time of speaking, and kicks you into the more habitual kind of notion, which the present tense verb form can do as well.
So it wouldn't be wrong to translate it.
Would not be wrong at all. In fact, I would prefer that, honestly. Okay. Anything else? If not, then let's go on to the next chapter and at least get started on chapter 18.